And I want to welcome Dr. Amy Johnson. I've been following you for a long time, so for me, I get a little giddy when I get people that I really, really like on the Zoom calls that I do. And for those that don't know, Miss Amy Johnson wrote this awesome book, Little Book of Big Change. She's also, what do you say? Are you the director of the little school or the founder? What do you call that?
I don't, but I guess I'm kind of all of it.
Yes.
I tell my kids I'm the principal, so we'll say I'm the principal of the Little School of Big Change.
Oh, how funny, the principal. She's the first, second, and third principal of the Little School of Big Change. We'll just say that. So let me, before I always start my conversations like this, how did you get into the principals? What happened? What was the thing for you?
Well, yeah, the thing for me was my life kind of sucked in a lot of ways. It was good in a lot of ways, and it was really hard in a lot of ways. So I was a coach. I was helping people. I was up at night a lot, wondering if I was really helping people. Like people kept coming back. They said it was helpful, but deep down, I really, really knew, no, there's got to be some way in that lasts, goes deeper than that. So I had that whole thing going. So I was, as a professional, I was always just looking for like, what else is out there? How are other people being held? Where does, honestly, like even back then, like where does real change come from? And so I was seeking all the time. And then I myself was in and out of a binge eating, bulimia habit, a little bit of anxiety still. And again, I was doing all my own tools and strategies on myself and not finding great results. So that wasn't good. And I had a client who I listened to Michael Neal before the principals on Hay House Radio. So when he was doing NLP stuff, I just like to hear, as a professional coach, I just love to hear people coaching other people. So I would listen to all those shows where people would call in, even really bad ones it's just my opinion, but even ones like Dr. Laura and stuff like that totally help people from a perspective. I would never say what she said or have that opinion, but I was always curious about how do you get through to somebody and help them. So I listened to Michael, loved his stuff, noticed a kind of change in him. And then I had a client who said, hey, you like Michael Neal, you might want to look into this 3 principles thing he's been talking about lately. So this was in maybe 2011. And I didn't know what the heck it was, but I found the 3 Principles movie site, and because that's all there was pretty much at that time was the 3 Principles movie site. I had a newborn who I was up all night feeding and, doing various things with, and I would just pop my little earbuds in and watch those videos on that site. I watched every video there 3 or 4 times. And it was amazing. I was blown away at what I was hearing and how it was that I had never heard this stuff before, and kind of all history from there.
The one thing that you said when we were working with people, before the principles, it's like people will come back and say, oh, that was good. Thank you. What else are we going to talk about? Yeah. And then when you start discussing this stuff, it's like they go, number one, why didn't I see this? It's so obvious. And number two, this obvious thing that I just saw is life-changing. What kind of responses do you seem to get with your clients now versus what you used to get before?
I think the biggest thing, what I see and what I think is the most important thing in terms of working with someone and helping them is that, the old cheesy cliche, about teaching someone how to fish rather than giving them a fish. That's just totally how it was before. It was we can talk about your marriage and what a jerk your husband is, and I can help you look at your thoughts around that and see that, okay, maybe my thoughts are a little biased and this thought feels better. But every single time they'd come back the next week and say, all right, my husband's not such a jerk anymore, but now I, ate a whole box of donuts. What's that about? Or now I hate my boss. Now my boss is a jerk. So it's just pops around to everything. And with this conversation, it doesn't do that anymore. It might in the beginning a little bit, but there's no more moving around and new things sprouting up, because we're always just pointing them to what's beneath everything. And that's I say it's a blessing and a curse. It's not a curse, but it makes it tough sometimes initially, I think. And I'm seeing this a lot this week when I'm trying to share this understanding as much as you can with brand new people and trying to get them excited about it and see the hope in it. It sounds a little too good to be true. you know, and people are saying, wait a minute. So you're telling me this has helped people who are suicidal, and also people with phobias, and also people with binge eating, and also people with heroin addiction? Seriously? Like, what are you trying to sell? You know, like that sometimes, not always, but that sometimes, and I get it because it does sound too good to be true. But you know, it's not like an instant fix for everyone, but it is deep enough that we go beneath all those details. And I think that's just the number one thing.
So you said teaching people how to fish. Let's get a little bit into that. What is it that you're teaching? What is it that they're learning that they're able to see for themselves?
They're seeing who they are, really getting a feel for like what doesn't change. You know, what in us in life, like what is true, what doesn't change every minute of every day, and then what does change every minute of every day, which is everything else. So, you know, like the way I would just say it here with you guys right now is, you know, who we are is that peace and resilience and everything good that we're looking for. There is just, and I wouldn't say it like that, like, oh, you know, explore it for yourself and see who we are. Like those are just words, but there is an us in there. There is a quiet stability and truth and something in all of us in life. Like it's all the same thing that we can start to look toward. And it's really hard to look there sometimes because it's invisible. And all of life has been pointing us toward a bunch of other stuff. So it's like getting a feel for that, and then getting a feel for their experience, which is what we're all caught up in all the time. But it's experience, you know, it's our psychology, it's our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors. And we are all innocently just looking there saying, how do I fix this? What do I do with this? How do I get out of this? How do I solve for this? Here's my problem. And it's just the craziest thing in the world once you see it, because it's like, you don't have to look there. Like, that's just a ball of psychology. It just does what it does. It's not you. It's not yours. You can't solve or fix for it, but you don't have to look there. There's another place to look, and then things start to kind of sort themselves out a little bit. Like you see more when you look in this other place. So for me, and again, just right now in this moment, like teaching them how to fish is helping them see something about that. So then it doesn't matter if your ball of psychology is about your husband or your boss or what you ate or drank yesterday, because it's all the same.
I have to say, while you were talking, I'm at a recovery center. I've been there now for 3 years. No matter how bad they've been, they know the truth of that they are whole. And when I first started, I'm like, ooh, they've been doing heroin for 10 years. Maybe they aren't as whole as the other person, but time and time again, what you said holds true. It does not matter. Like everybody that I've spoken to, maybe they didn't see it at the time in my recovery group. A week later, they'll come by. I've had people come by after they've graduated and said, you know what, Amir, you're right. So as simple as that may seem, what you just said, it's 100% true, without a doubt, unequivocally true. Yeah. So I'm glad that you pointed that out.
And everyone, and see what that tells us, like the fact that no matter how far gone someone is, they still, when they feel all this stuff settle down, when their mind settles down, when, like, I don't know, when they just feel that psychology settle, they don't go to terror. They don't go to bad news. They don't go to more addiction. They go to peace. Now it's relative, you know, like when I was really caught up, my peaceful moments were not anything like my peaceful moments are today, but there's a movement in that direction. And that is true for every single person. And I love starting there with people sometimes too, because like you said, I mean, everybody can see that. Like, oh, what does that tell us? I mean, the fact that when all this crap that's all over the place settles down, we feel more like ourselves again. That tells us something enormous about ourselves, right? About what's true by nature in there.
I wanted to say something along the lines with what you just said. You have a way of elaborating this that seems like, well, of course it works that way. What would you say to people on this call that are either going through it or they know someone that's going through it? How would they start this conversation? Because that's probably one of the hardest things for people that just get this for the first time and they want to explain it to someone else. What are your thoughts on that?
It's hard. I mean, it was for me because I would hear people that spoke with such conviction and I would want to sound like them because that impacted me. Like when people would say, you know, honestly, like what you just said, it just looks so obvious, but it wasn't always that way. And so I think we have to be careful about trying to sound like we have conviction when we maybe don't yet. Like if you don't, you don't, but just keep hanging around and keep looking for evidence of it and you will. Because that's probably the number one thing that turns people off is if you were to go up to someone, I know none of us would do that, but you know, when you're like, oh, by the way, you're totally healthy, but there's a part of you that doesn't quite see that or know that to be true. They can sniff that out from a mile away and it's not going to have any impact. So it's the thing about kind of just sharing what you have seen, what you absolutely know to be true, even if that's nothing, even if that's tiny. I have a small group of coaches and practitioners in this that I mentor, and Mark Howard talked to us 2 days ago. And he was saying for a year, all he knew to be true is that we feel our thinking. Nothing. He knew nothing else. He had heard other things from Sid, from all kinds of people, but he hadn't really seen that. So he spent a year only talking about, I think we feel our thinking, and I'm not even sure what that means. And his clients were affected by that because like there was something in that was so genuine that he knew. And then as you're around this more, what you come to really deeply know, that just naturally grows.
And I want to point out, did you notice when Amy answered that question, her first thing was, oh, that's kind of hard, which means even she stumbles. It's not, I don't think it's one of those things that you get the principles, next thing you know, you're a pro. And here's the good news that I've noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong. This is one of the only understandings or paradigms or whatever you want to call it, that being confused is okay. Like it's okay to sit there and go, ooh, you stumped me. I don't know what I would do on that one. Let me think about it. And it doesn't look like you're not a pro. It just shows that you're a real human and you don't know all the answers, and let's look together in a direction. Do you agree? What are your thoughts with that?
I mean, that's like especially when it comes to sharing this stuff, that's like the best thing about it. Like we don't have to know anything. Like we're truly, and that's one of the hardest things about it. It really is, because there's so much out there that bombards us with being the professional and you know something, and you know, like it's funny. I mean, on that call with Mark and in my group too, like we just have been over and over having these little insights of like, wow, the only thing in the way from sharing this in a really simple, natural way is just all the complexity that we add. Like we think it can't be that simple, but it truly is as simple as, hey, I don't know either. Let's look at this together and just kind of feel it out and just being curious, you know, I mean, and that's the best way for us to see more about it ourselves and keep getting, you know, more insights about it, is to just genuinely be curious and just follow that curiosity.
This is going to be off topic a little bit. I know your background is psychology. Is that correct? You have a PhD in psychology. This is a personal question from me. How do your peers see what you do? Do they? Because I have a feeling they're not as open to it, and maybe I'm wrong, or maybe you have a way of sharing it. How do you deal with it with your peers, or speak about it?
So the honest answer is I don't. Really. I mean, I don't, you know, really, like the people that I did all that research with for all those years and, you know, and academics, that they're not all that interested, and I'm not interested in converting them. If they're interested, I'd love to speak with them, but most of them aren't, and that's totally fine with me. So the honest answer is it just doesn't even come up that much. But you know, it was a learning curve for me in a sense that I think early on when I went in this direction and they were all there, I was still a little bit more one foot in each, or I still maybe cared more what they thought, or maybe it was more that I even like questioned, like, is this like, wow, this has no validation. Like, well, you know, it's not even studyable. It's not even validatable. So like, what am I doing? Like, you know, so when that was there in my experience, I thought about it a lot more, and it looked like it mattered what they thought, and I kept tabs on what they thought. But I don't know, I guess just as my grounding is deepened, or now that I just see, I don't care about what's validated. I care about what I see in people and what I've personally experienced. And I will talk about this until the day I die, because of what I've seen.
You have no idea how much that means to me, because for so long I thought it was important that I validated myself by speaking to others that maybe had a higher education than me or knew something about psychology that I didn't, and I felt like I had to do that. Um, the fact that you just said that, it just kind of confirms I don't have to try to convince everybody. And I think there's a lot of people in our community that feel like once they get this idea that they need to make sure it gets thrown into everyone's face and they need to share what they need to share. And what you said is brilliant. Look, I share with people that want to listen. And I think that's really important.
I mean, you will get so burnt out and frustrated if you try to do it any other way, and there are enough people that want to listen. Now, there are a lot of people that'll doubt you up front and that, want the proof just because that's what they're used to. But that's another thing where it's like, you kind of just come to have so much compassion and understanding for that. Because me too, I doubted it too until I saw it, in real life. I saw it for myself. So yeah, like it's just like, okay, like you get used to the fact that, yeah, there's going to be the same old questions sometimes up front, but it is also really interesting how we, once we see this more and more, those questions, they just kind of, I don't know if it's that my mind just doesn't even focus on them anymore or what it is. But it's interesting. We had somebody in the school last week asked a question about, she was making a case for how and she has some food issues, and she was making a case to all of us for how the whole world is all about looks and body image, and there's such an ideal, and this was so big in her mind. And I had this moment of like, is it really? But it was the funniest thing because I lived that for years. I knew exactly for years. I said, yep, everywhere I look, there are these people and that people and this image and this shaming, and it's all I saw. And seriously now, like to hear her say that, it was kind of like, is that still a thing out there? I guess it is. Which again, I'm not like, bragging about my progress, but like it is the craziest thing how that'll happen. So anything that's big for us in our mind, is just brought front and center. And then as soon as we see it differently, it just tends to fall away.
I love that. Thank you, Amy. I have Wendy that has a question. Are you ready or open to some questions or insights?
Yeah, love it.
Let's go. Let's see. Miss Wendy, welcome. Always love to have you.
Chance to talk with you. I just wanted to say that I'm a Harvard trained nurse. I don't mean at Harvard University, but I'm in the greater Boston area and a nurse. And I so understand the need to have credibility by, double-blind controlled studies and blah, 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 blah. Not so interesting anymore. And the other part that I wanted to say was, you didn't use this term, but when you say the 3 Ps really helps you with suicide and with binge eating and with, terrible anxiety, when people go, really, what brought to mind was the term snake oil. That there's one little elixir bottle that fits all problems. And again, harking back on my my history as a nurse, there are many, many people now out there in the medical world or the healthcare world that will tell you that many of the illnesses that we suffer from, diabetes, whatever, if you trace it back, it's all about inflammation. So there's kind of like a very core physiological problem that can look like arthritis in one person, can look like Alzheimer's in another person, can look like diabetes in another person. But if you trace it all back, it's a lot of it has to do with gut health or inflammation. So when you said that, how we look at things, a thought in the moment, and that universality is at the core of, suicide, anxiety, and so forth. So I just really appreciated that. And I loved how I made that connection with the health world, that up until maybe today, I kind of was saying, well, there's psychology and mental health, and then there's physical health, and, and I know that there's a mind-body connection, but that was just a really helpful thing for me to kind of piece together after your conversation this morning. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great thing to see. And that's so funny because that's how I think almost everything is. Like, we've been so trained to look at the complexity and everything, but there's a simplicity, and there's like a common core in everything, in health and psychology and in, I don't know, stuff that we don't even understand how things work out in science and in nature. And, so I just have a sense that what you just saw, that connection with health, like, that's it. That's probably everywhere. But I think, I don't know, but it seems to me like we're so fascinated with being smart and being intelligent just as a world, and like thinking about differences and complexity and how can we manipulate this and what can we do, that it's just got us looking there, and if we just back up, it's so simple. And that's what I love. I love applying this, with things like habits and anxiety and addiction and all of that, because those are places, especially same with health, where everybody's so bogged down, and your specialists and all your people, and we're not getting to the core. We're not getting to the core of it at all.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. So for those that are on the call, that are listening, and they're going, wait a minute, suicide, anxiety, depression, all these mental health issues that we see, how can it possibly all be from the same thing? What are you talking about? Can you go a little further on what that means?
Yeah, I mean, it's all back to the fact that we innocently misunderstand our experience. We're afraid of what we feel. And then again, then it can get really complex. We think it means something about us. We think it's going to be around forever. We've been told we have to fix it. There's all this busyness around it. But that's at least the simplest level I've seen it at, is that, essentially we're just really afraid of what we feel. And when I look at little kids like 1 and 2 and 3, like, they feel all kinds of stuff and they don't seem afraid of it. And they don't fall into these habitual issues like we do.
Yeah, and it seems to me that, with psychology, from my understanding, is they just give a name to something once it turns into something. Like social anxiety disorder is a thought-generated thing, and once it turns into something, they give it a name. Is that kind of what I'm saying? Or
yeah, it's a description of our experience, basically. Right. So social anxiety disorder, if someone has a lot of anxious thoughts in a social situation, we can just slap that label on them. Now, it's a perfectly accurate description, I'm sure. I'm sure that person feels very anxious in social situations. But then it just kind of begs the question, like, well, okay, we just going to stop with this label, and then we're going to treat it from the top down, and we're going to say, oh, well, put yourself in those situations instead, or think these thoughts, picture everyone naked, take some deep breaths, whatever the heck whatever strategies we do that are so shallow. They just, even when those work, because they do work sometimes. If someone's having a panic attack or you're anxious or whatever, if you stop and take some deep breaths, you are going to feel better. Wonderful. Do that. But the next time you feel anxious, then what? And then the next time, then what? And the people I see, they've been doing this stuff over and over, and then they've come to the conclusion, I'm really bad because breathing doesn't help me. And it's like, no, the only problem is that, we're going to keep feeling stuff because we're human. You're going to feel anxious over and over again. That's no big deal. The problem is that looks like a problem.
Yeah, and the flip side of that is that when you talk about this paradigm or this understanding, and you're talking to someone who has depression, which has happened in my recovery center, someone across the way says, whatever you said about depression, it's helped my insomnia. And someone else says, well, whatever you said about my insomnia helped my anxiety when I'm driving. So it is really universal, because when you go back to the original source, you can go, when you're at a party, why do you feel this way? They will say it's a thought. When you're not able to sleep, why do you think that is? Because I can't stop thinking. It literally goes back to that over and over again. I have not yet been stumped by anyone to say, no, it's something other than thought. And so that it's really interesting. It's really interesting what you're saying. And it rings true, like I said, 100%.
Yeah. There's just so much to see about thought. I mean, a lot of people can say like, oh, I see that my thinking does that to me, but it's still my thinking, and why is it here, and how do I make it change and stop, so there's still just that, like, that fear, when someone's kind of partway there, like they see where it's coming from. But like, really, where we go all in with this is seeing it doesn't matter what's there. like, and that's a consequence too. It's like seeing how it works. A consequence of that is it starts being like, oh, okay, yeah, that's there. And that's there. And that showed up, right now, like there's a lot of new people kind of around this in my school from this week. And they're all in there, like, oh, my mind was so busy. And then my mind got quiet. And then my mind got so busy and all these things came out. And then my mind got quiet. And it's like, God, I just can't wait for them to be around this a little bit more and start to see, who cares? Yeah, that, like what you're describing, I don't mean that obviously in like a disrespectful way or to discount their experience, but like that's the problem, is that it looks like it matters where our mind goes and what it says. I mean, if we can just see, yes, mine too, everybody's, we're all exactly the same. It's just that, we fear it or we don't.
Yeah, and it's the difference between being careless and carefree. I think careless is, I don't care what I'm thinking, screw it, I'm going to just do something else. And carefree is literally letting any thought go through, not giving one more value than another, literally being carefree about it. And I think as you start to go deeper into this idea, you start to see that for yourself. It's not that, correct me if I'm wrong, you still have the same thoughts. It's not like this isn't about making a thought better, making it less fearful or whatever. It's knowing you're going to have thoughts and knowing that it doesn't matter that you are. Is that true?
Yeah. Knowing that you're going to have thoughts, knowing that they're not even your thoughts. It's just life moving through us. They don't mean anything about you, at least not that I've ever seen. It's like I had an event here in June and my mom came and I was talking about this, and she doesn't really know that much about this. She knows a little, but we were talking about how like your thoughts aren't yours. They're not so personal. They're just kind of what shows up and moves through you. And she's like, oh, my mom watches all these like crime shows, like murder, everything. And so she's like, oh, it's kind of like when I was driving down the highway the other day and I looked in that deep ditch and I said, you could hide a body in there. And she's like, and then I wondered, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And it's like, yeah, kind of like that. I'm pretty sure you're not a, sociopath. Like, but yeah, that stuff just pops in. Like, we don't have to own it all. And then it's huge to see that.
I love that. So I do want to get some questions. And I also want to know a little bit about your school too, because I know it just started and I want to ask you a couple questions. But before I do that, does anyone want to chime in, ask a question? Here's your chance. Does anyone? Oh, we have Jan. All right. Go ahead.
Hi. This thing about they're not your thoughts. I mean, the frustrating place that I'm in is that I do get it. I've been around it quite a long time. And, but I have a son who's in his mid-30s who's got a diagnosis of schizophrenia. And I can't say, when you said about the thoughts are not yours, it brought such a vivid memory to me of how he defends his thoughts. Of course they're mine. And he's so angry when I foolishly said, put my foot in something and said, well, they're not your thoughts. They're just all the things that one says about thoughts. And he just went mad about it. And he's hanging on to them. They're his identity and they're him. And in 10 years now, I can't get him to even hear anything. And so I find myself, even though I'm deeply trustful of the three principles, and I know how much it's changed me, I find it really hard to have any hope for people who are in his situation, who've gone quite a long way down the line and are on medication and who don't want to listen. Well, can't listen would be fairer to say. And I know that my inability to feel hope, I know he knows that. And it's like, it's a bit paradoxical really, because I believe it, but I can't believe it when I'm with him, and so he can't believe that I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not really a question. It's just
No,
how
but
it is.
it's, I mean, I so feel for you, and it's, it is one of those things where, to me, there's a difference. Like, this is the truth in the big picture. But then when it comes to you specifically imagining your son seeing it, well, that's a whole different
Yeah.
thing, And that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like, I mean, that's, and I'll just say, and this isn't, this is a little bit outside of that, but like when I'm working with people and they start to get a feel for this, but then they'll go to, yeah, but how is this going to stop me from blah, 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 whatever that is, that's where it goes. It's like, no, let's just look at how it works and stay there, because there's a piece there. And as soon as we make it personal or think about it in a situation, then all kinds of our own personal stuff comes in.
Of course,
so,
it's my exception, isn't it?
Yeah, it's your
It's my
exception.
big exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hey, we're all human. We all get them. And I hear you. And like, we can all feel for that, and see how hard that might be to see. But for you to keep remembering, when you get tight and hopeless around it, that's just your mind's little exception. Doesn't mean there's no hope. Doesn't mean schizophrenics haven't seen it. Doesn't mean any of that. That's just Jan's mind goes over here to its little place and does its little painful thing, That's
I've been doing that for such a long time, and it's, ever so painful. And yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me of that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Keep it big. We don't know what's going to happen with any one person, but that's just, it's like the smaller we look, the more bias we get in there, the more subjective it is and painful. So it's like, if we can, and you have such a big, I can feel it, like big understanding of this. The more we just keep it big, I think we'll see it all over the place.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, for an awesome question, or what you saw. Thank you, and thank you for your answer. We have Sue that wants to. Sue, go ahead and unmute yourself and welcome. It's good to see you.
Hi, long time no see.
I know.
But hi, Amy.
Hi, Sue.
Excited for Tuesday, to say the least.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you're in.
But my question is, I have a habit, of avoidance when I feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I have what they call a safe zone, and kind of when I'm in the house and I have anxiety in the house, I'm cool. I'm okay with it. I'm fine to a degree. But when I go out, that's a complete different story. And I know it's just my thinking, but I can't, because it's habitual. I'm not. It's just something I do.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could talk a bit about that.
So are you thinking that you need to go out more? Because I'm just curious about the fact that you the way you ask it is about the avoidance habit, or however you said that, but like about the fact that you don't go out.
I don't go at all.
Yeah.
I am. I know labelling's not good, but I am labelled as agoraphobic.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I've recognised I've been in the principles about a year now, and I recognise that it is a habit, because I'm not scared of going out. I'm just scared of the fees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I recognise that, but I still avoid.
Yeah. Well, of course you do, because there's just more to see there. So I would say I would back you off from even thinking or worrying right now about getting out. You will get out when you see this differently. Right now, you get it, like, no question. I can hear it. You see it's your thinking. You see there's no real threat. It's just that's a tough place to be for people sometimes, because
It's frustrating.
Yes, like you know it, but you don't know it in your bones yet. You know, like there's this, and that's everybody's been there. But we've all are there, and I'm there with several things right now where it's like I know how this is, but it doesn't feel like a safe truth in my bones yet. So that's just a place to keep looking. And I wouldn't even worry about going out, because when that gets into your bones and like really it just looks different in a much deeper way, we won't be able to keep you in the house. You'll be running all over the place. But that'll happen. Like you don't have to make that happen. The more we try to make that happen or look toward the behavior, we just tend to add more pressure, and it's not good.
Yeah, because like, my daughter's bought us tickets to go and see a Luther Vandross tribute tomorrow, and I can't go, and I'm gutted because I can't go. But
right now, okay, so right now, today, everything in your mind is saying, don't go. Brakes are on, not going, not going to happen.
It's been like that for 20 years.
Okay, but that doesn't exist anymore either, besides right now in your mind.
Yeah.
So right now, and this is all we have is right now, this moment. So right now, your mind is saying 20 years and tomorrow and can't go and all this stuff. And to really kind of see, like you intellectually know that's a bunch of thought, but man, it looks solid still.
Yeah, it does.
That's the thing. Right now, today, I've never seen you in my life, but right now. So like, I don't know your past. I don't know your tomorrow. We want to get more like that with ourselves. You know what I mean? Like it's here right now. All I know is what's here in this moment now. Who the heck knows what's going to happen in 5 minutes or tomorrow? And again, like our mind might pounce on that sometimes and say, oh, okay, so let me get in this mindset and then I'll go to the concert tomorrow. No, just be here now and keep seeing. In this moment, there is no past or future. There's just now. And the only thing you're feeling is habitual thought.
Yeah.
You're a healthy person. You have no anxiety, nothing. You are just a person sitting here right now, feeling all kinds of stuff brought to life within you.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you. We'll talk more.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sue, again. Thank you. It was good to see you.
And you.
Of course. So speaking of seeing her more, I believe you have a school. I want to know a little bit about your school. What's the idea? How did it first get started?
So it first got started in a few ways. One is that when I wrote the little book, A Big Change, I got kind of busy, which is a wonderful thing. But I really kind of just started seeing. I had to have, for me, I think I had to have that year or so of just conversation after conversation after conversation, to where it became so clear and obvious to me, I am saying the same thing over and over. There's one thing to point toward. Like that was my grounding deepening, it's like, man, I talked to 30 clients this week, because that's how my weeks were for a while. And I am pointing all of them with a variety of issues in the exact same place. So that kind of told me, all right, maybe I should just say more about that. So really it kind of came from that. And I created it and the content there with people in mind who, could just show up fresh no matter what's going on. Like I wanted the feel of walking someone through this. So even when people come to the school who have been around the principles, and there are many of them, it's such an important thing, I think, to just show up fresh. And then they kind of go through this content, which starts really at the beginning of like, who are we? Like what's true? What doesn't change? And then how our experience works. And then it gets, deeper from there. But yeah, just to have that kind of commonplace experience where I could send people to say, hey, this is the core of everything we're sharing. And then we'll talk about what's coming up for you from that. But it as a starting point kind of.
So do people have to have, it sounds like they don't have to have an understanding of the principles. It could come fresh with someone saying, hey, Joe, I think this could be useful. And they're like, what's the 3 principles? You're like, does it matter?
It does not matter. Most people come in, do not have any have never heard of the 3 principles in their life. I don't even know if that's true. That's most anymore, but I'd say at least half come in just because they're struggling. They've been doing the same old stuff over and over and it's not working, to try to find change. And then there's another, I don't know, maybe I guess maybe 40% or so that have been around the principles a little bit. Some have been around the principles for a really long time, and they just want to see it fresh in a different way.
Can you, I'm sure you have a ton because your school's been around for a while. Do you have any specific, you don't have to say names, but what are some changes you've seen?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of changes. So, oh gosh, who to pick? So, here shared the links. There's so many stories in there, and we had to cut out so many just because there wasn't room. So, one woman, just after talking to Sue, one woman also hadn't left her house in a long time. Just constant fear of everything. She had fibromyalgia. Was with all kinds of just physical things that you knew were just coming from carrying around all this thinking. So much of that going on. And it's been the most awesome thing. Amanda, who works in the school with me, she and I, like, we get pictures from this woman now. She's traveling across countries and sending us pictures of like these road trips, and she's out hiking and like visiting family that she hadn't seen. And you know, that's one that just pops to mind because I just got some of her holiday pictures today where it's like, oh my gosh, like this woman again for years didn't leave her house, and she's going on road trips. This is like nuts. There's a lot of stuff, a lot with anxiety and a lot with habits. So I tend to attract a lot of people with eating issues just because that's what I had, and I talk about that a lot. So a lot of people are in that place with food issues. To give an example there, where everything is so important. What do I eat? What should I eat? When do I eat? Like, I mean, just loads of thinking about it. And then we hear them usually fairly early on, like, oh, you know, my mind went there and replayed all the rules and the questions and all that, but they just start to back off that and see that with a bit of softness. And many people came in, you know, a few months ago we've had 3 openings. So sometime in the last year, let's say, with pretty severe eating issues and are just completely free of them. And now that's the best part. That's what I love about this understanding too. It's like now they're on to other things, you know, now they're like, all right, that's gone. Sometimes that happens really quickly. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but I love that about this, where it's like, oh, that's cleared up, you know, and then let's just see what there is. And now they're like, you know, in your group and in other groups, and like really just diving into this understanding.
Can I ask you, at some point, like with someone like that gets the insight and is just like, whoa, this is amazing. What I did when I got this understanding is I went so deep into it more that I started to get lost. Is there at some point a breaking point where you're just go on and go live life? Or have you seen anything like that?
Like where, well, what do you mean when you got lost?
So it got to a point where the principles really helped me. But I felt like if I read 10 more books, it's going to really, really help me. Or if I watch 10 more videos, to a point where I forgot that it's not about the books, or it's not about the you know, it's like, okay, you got this understanding. It's time to go live life, not try to go find something even more deeper or deeper. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think like we kind of lovingly joke about that in the school, where it's like sometimes the habit goes away that they came in for or whatever, but then they pick up this 3 principles habit, you know, or like this book reading habit or something, you know, and it's like, again, it's as simple to me as like, okay, we stumble upon these things, we hit up against stuff, and it's just another opportunity to see, oh, there's a bunch of thinking that didn't look like thinking to me. So you got something, and then your mind said, more, I need more, I need more, I need more. Well, there's just more thinking. And then eventually you wake up to that, you know, and then you see through that. So does that make sense? Like, it feels like
you just hit on that. That's what happened to me. That stopped becoming a problem eventually as well. Once I saw what I was doing. So yeah.
That's how easy we are. Like, we get this feedback, right? And then we're like, oh, especially if you know something about this, you're like, oh, now I'm doing that. Okay. And then that's done.
Yeah. So that doesn't need fixing either, which is the whole point.
And you might find something else, but then you'll see through that too.
Yep, absolutely. So we have 15 more minutes. I would love to hear anyone else to jump in, ask any questions. Dominic, I'm shocked that you're just sitting there not having a question.
Come on, give me a hard one, Dominic.
Dominic, you got anything? No?
Not yet.
Fair enough. Is Sheila trying to get, Sheila, do you have a question? I feel like I'm doing oh no, okay. Okay, so well, if no one has a question yet, that's totally fine with me. Hold on, let me get, Amy, so how do people join your school? It started, right, or it's not started? Is it enrollment?
So enrollment started on Monday and it ends tonight at midnight Easter time. So we're on the last little stretch here. And then when people join, so you can give them a link that they can follow to join. But when they join, basically the way it works is you get the first block of content right away. So people are already in there since Monday, yesterday, the day before, kind of taking in that first content. You get access to our private forum right away. So we're in there supporting and coaching people already. And then starting next week, I'm doing 2 group calls every week throughout the 6 weeks of the course. So every Tuesday and Thursday, I'll have a call with everybody who's on. And again, like they've had about an hour of content. So the content's dripped out about an hour per week. And we'll just meet in those calls and chat, go deeper into that content and do coaching and, whatever's in their way, we get to see through that.
Yeah, and for those that are interested, I just want to give you guys a heads up. You do an incredible job, Amy, making it. I mean, and again, I don't know what it is with our principals community, and it's kind of cool because a lot of the old school, they just don't know how to use computers or something, or don't have like proper website access to people who make websites. I don't know how, but that doesn't matter because the content's what's important. But what I like about you, Amy, is it is very easy to navigate. You've made it like it's literally a school. Like, this is step 1, this is step 2, here are our calls, and after our calls, do this. And I love that because I don't have to find out how to use your website or how to use the program, which allows me to actually learn the content. I think that's really important. I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, that to me is, maybe that shouldn't be the most important thing, but it kind of is, because here's why. Like, my whole thing in life right now is we are bombarded with so much complexity that is so unnecessary. Again, like we were saying earlier, like Wendy brought up and stuff, it's like, that's the problem. That's where everybody's in their heads, like trying all these patches and apps to try to fix a habit, and it's like, let's just go deep and simple. So there was no way I'm going to create a school that's complicated, and even to the point, and I have like, people saying, oh, you should give more bonuses. You should do this. You should do that. I'm like, no, I don't. I mean, I did give some bonuses, but like they were chosen to just be like another step of that process. Like, so simple, because overwhelm is the problem. Like, being in our heads is the problem. So if somebody shows up there and they're like, I don't know where to go, and they're already not going to be able to hear anything.
Yeah, it's like built into the system to make it simple. It's easy to navigate, so you can see what you see. It's beautiful. The last few minutes, if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand now. But for people that are struggling right now, that are maybe on this call because they need something in their lives, like Jan responded with her son, but what would you say is the biggest thing they can do for themselves right now? Whether they know the principles, whether they don't, what would be useful for them?
I think it's not always like we can hear it like anything. We can hear this in a million different ways, but there's something about, and this is what I think hope is kind of knowing that we're experiencing what we're experiencing. We're in the thoughts and feelings and behaviors and memories that we're in, fine. But to me, hope is kind of like just knowing, wow, maybe there's like something beyond that. That's it. I mean, that's like just a basic starting point, like something that I think anybody, no matter what you understand about this, we can all be reminded of that at times. And for people who know nothing, just to have that little bit of like, I get it. Our experience is so huge. It's like we have this black cloud at times. Just somebody described it once as a helmet, which I love. It's like you're wearing this helmet, and so all you see is just what's in your helmet, right? I mean, that's it. You can't even see outside of your helmet. But just to consider, wow, what if I had the helmet on? And, to really go deep with it, we always have a helmet on. If you are in a problem, if you are struggling, especially if things don't look hopeful, if things look limited, if you're seeing a limitation in life, that's not life. Can't be. That's your helmet. And you don't need to fix it, but just knowing that right there is gigantic.
It is literally that is it. That's literally, I mean, I love the helmet analogy, but that's literally it. And I know for those that are listening and they say, oh, hope, I know that it's just hope. Okay, I'll have hope. But hope has literally saved people's lives in my recovery center. It's the one like string left that allowed them to see something new or more or deeper. And so, and the thing about hope is that we all have the capacity for that. We all have the capability. It's not something you have to try to like figure out. It's knowing the possibility that you have the availability to see something new. That's hope in of itself, that you can look at any direction and maybe see something.
Yes.
And Dominic, yes, I knew it.
All right.
All right.
That's
my boy.
Hey, Amy, great to be talking to you live. The helmet metaphor, and of course all metaphors have the parts where they break down, obviously, right? With the helmet metaphor, but we're never without the helmet, meaning even when things are great. Right? Because we're always experiencing our thinking. Yeah. So I think there's something about that too, is to see there, it's not like, and I mean, you tell me if this matches how you're using the metaphor, but it's not like my objective is to get this helmet off my head.
Right.
Because I'm never going to have this helmet off my head as long as I am in physical form.
Right.
Like I'm here, and the only thing I'll ever experience is my thinking. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to check that out.
And yeah, and that makes sense to me. That feels right. But you know, the thing is, like, knowing that we have a helmet on, kind of makes it not matter whether we get it off our head or not. Right. So it's like, you know, like I've been using lately the roller coaster metaphor, where it's like, if you don't know what a roller coaster is, like, we're getting ups and downs all the time. If you don't know what a roller coaster is, you're convinced that you're plunging to your death like every 3 seconds, right? And then you're having the time of your life, and then you're plunging to your death. And like, that's terrifying. If you know you're on a roller coaster, you're still doing all that stuff, but you're pretty sure that it's going to pull in the station in a few seconds, and that you're pretty sure you're going to be alive when that happens, you know? So it's like, just knowing about that helmet, then I don't know. I mean, to me, and see what you guys think, like, it's everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that, because it's like, you're safe, whether that helmet on your head is kind of, you're looking out and there's a horror movie going on. Yeah. Or whether there's this most wonderful time at dinner with friends. But you're perfectly safe no matter what is showing up there. Yeah,
and you know that it's just a feature of the helmet. So it doesn't, like, the horror movie isn't life. Life can't do that. And the wonderful dinner with friends isn't life. It's all a feature of the helmet, right? It's all kind of just being projected from in there, which, again, I don't know. I think it kind of gives that sense of like, okay, well, then I don't have to take any of it all that seriously.
Yeah, got it. And then where does that take you from a realization that whatever's showing up here is thought created, but meaning it's created by you?
So the created by you part, I don't know. Like, for me, and again, this is just how I see it. Like, I don't feel like the creator of most of it. And I've heard a whole range of responses to this, you know, but like, people think this is like terrible or wonderful or whatever. To me, it's the best news in the world. Like, I'm not the creator. I don't view any of it as personal. I just see it as stuff coming through. Now, I'm the creator to the extent that, you know I have this machine in my head that maybe tends to go in a certain direction. But again, I didn't put the machine there and I didn't program it. So I'm not really taking credit or blame for that. It's more like just sort of again, that's kind of how I see it right now, is it's like just stuff kind of just moves through us. And it's pretty cool to be in that place and say, like, if I don't, I don't want this horror that I'm in, like, I'm not going to say I created it, because we sure didn't do it on purpose, even if we did.
Can I just change the metaphor a little bit?
Yes.
So I walk into a buffet and I didn't make any of that food.
Yeah.
And there's stuff I hate, right? And I don't have to eat it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. There's something about that. In every moment in my life, there is stuff that if I look at it, there is stuff that I hate that's terrible. Like right now I'm looking at my desk and it's kind of like it's a little bit messy, right? Mm-hmm. So I can like zero in on this and start to eat that thinking, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like the mess in the desk, and why do I do this? And how come I leave it like this? This isn't a productive way to work. And maybe I'm being lazy or whatever. Like suddenly I'm eating more of this food.
Yeah.
Or I can look at this desk and think like, boy, how lucky am I to be able to work from home, and that this is kind of a career. Like I could think anything, really.
You could, if you can. I mean, so can Sue just think, I could just leave my house and go to that concert tomorrow? Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like to some extent, like in theory, you're absolutely right. And in practice, at times, you're absolutely right. But I don't know. I guess to me, it doesn't, like, that feels like an element of work and manipulation and me choosing. And again, sometimes that's totally what we do. I mean, and it's a wonderful thing to do. But I think if we look even a step beyond that, in the bigger picture, we're just seeing what our thinking allows us to see. And I don't know that we always have that ability to choose or pivot or whatever. So if we don't, or when we don't, it's wonderful to still know, okay, maybe I'm just caught up in this anxiety or caught up in this habit, and I don't feel like I can pivot out of it, but I still know it's just coming from within my helmet. It's not real. I know something about that.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Great little chat. I have to say, if we could choose, then why would we choose otherwise than what's good for us, right? Then your school wouldn't exist. All these self-help books wouldn't exist, because in my opinion, we don't choose. That's why we are kind of where we're at a lot of times. What I think you're pointing to, Amy, it's that the choosing is irrelevant when you see what the whole thing is made of. Yeah. It's not, because it sometimes looks like I'm choosing. Like there are times I look at my desk and I go, oh, this is okay, I'll fix it tomorrow. Or why am I always like this? But I don't get to choose which one comes up for me. Sometimes it bothers me and sometimes it doesn't, but I don't choose to let it bother me. It just bothers me. But am I right? What you're pointing to is you're a little deep into the game when you're starting to think, oh, here, let's manipulate the thought. It's going back and saying, wait a minute, it's all made from the same material.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I check something? Jack Pransky posted it within the group. He did this very short quote in answer to something, and he said, you get what you think about. So, just kind of like that quote, and then, so you get what you think about. Yes. So I hear what you're saying, Amir, in terms of you didn't choose it, but you are thinking about it.
The you think about piece, I think, is a little like, does that mean you get what you consciously set out to decide to think about? Sure. But what about all the stuff we don't consciously decide to set out to think about?
Unless you're thinking about it, you're not experiencing it.
Right.
You do have to think about it.
You
have to give it attention.
It's the you piece. It's the I don't think that I'm giving certain things attention. It's definitely not in any kind of conscious, intentional way. It's thought. It's, yes, we get what thought is bringing us, is the way I would say that. We experience what is being brought to us by thought. The action and ownership piece is different to me.
I'll have to let that settle. I don't know, unless I'm I could look out at scenery and unless I look at something, it won't be anything for me, right? Like, I mean, I could be sitting by a lake, and unless I look at a tree or a bird or like that, then I don't know, then like I'm just seeing something else, or like there's something about that in my experience. It feels like that there is something like I am moving through that with some volition. And if I don't have volition, then what is it that is moving me through that? And is whatever that is outside of me?
I mean, they're kind of like the biggie questions about free will. It's like we could go there with it, you know? So I don't know. It's a great thing to just kind of, you know, like you said, sit with and see more about. To me, I certainly feel a sense of volition at times, and other times not at all. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the curiosity for me is, if it is not my volition, then it must be something outside of me.
Why? What about just life moving through? Was it your volition to digest your breakfast this morning?
No.
And that's not from outside of you, is it?
No.
I mean, it's not our volition for it to be turning into fall, and for, you know, it's like I feel like
I guess it isn't my volition that it be turning into fall, but I guess that the idea that this is a depressing time and summer is better than fall, I think there's something about that which is me, because it's just not true, right? So yeah. I think that what I see is that there's something about that's me. That it's getting to be fall, and this is a depressing time of the year because summer was better and it's the favorite, and I could have a better life in summer than I could in fall. I think all of that is me.
Well, it's your personal thinking for sure. Whether we call that you or not, we equate that with you or not, I don't know. But I mean, that's your personal thinking. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and if it isn't me doing that, then it must be something outside of me doing that.
No. Why isn't it not just your brain's habit of having those preferences and opinions and then seeing them as if they're real?
So yeah, that part, I guess, the seeing them as if they're real. So that all that stuff can arise, but there's something, and now we get to choice, right? I can choose from that buffet. And Sid said, follow the feeling. And so when I choose from the buffet, I can notice whether it's poisoning me or making me feel bad, or I can notice whether it's actually healthy and good for me. So I can choose from the buffet.
I think we're completely on the same page. The only little tweak that's really different that feels huge to me is like there's a lot of you in what you're saying, and I just see it as our design. Like Amir said, he saw all this stuff, and then he got addicted to reading books. But then feedback, wisdom, mind showed him, wait, this sucks. Something's wrong here. And then he saw that. So I wouldn't say he did that. I mean, maybe he did, but I don't know. Like thoughts and preferences and ideas and opinions, they don't feel like they're coming from me. Otherwise, I'd be having them bam, bam, bam. I'd have a lot more than I have, but I don't feel in control of that. It's more of like we're the vessel for it, in a sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dominic, and on this note, I know you're a deep thinker. I will send you something that I think kind of clarified it for me. It was by Sam Harris, so I'll send that to you, or I'll put it in the group. But well, we're out of time. I do want to say one last thing. A little bit that Renata said, and I think this will be a great way to close it. She said, not a question as much as the biggest change truly came from the effortless realization that 50 years of suicidal ideation actually was inspired by Amy's simplicity congruency. So her ideation of having 50 years of ideation simply stopped by this, something that you had said, Amy, and she just wanted to thank you. She goes on to say more, but you've helped a lot of people, and I'm so grateful that you're here and that you share with us and you share in your school and all your books and podcasts and all the things that you do. And I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure everyone here agrees. Just a big thank you for coming here, for doing what you do. And it means so much for me and all the people here. I'll talk on behalf of everyone. And would you be willing to get on again at some point?
I would love to. And
Awesome.
thank you. Thank you so much, Renata. Love that. Thank you. And thank you, Amir, because I feel the same about you. I mean, people love you and hear what you have to say, and you share with them in a beautiful way. So you're a role model for me too. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And you guys, this is a wonderful way to start close to our weekend. I want to thank everyone here that was on here. And also, please continue to leave your comments or questions. I know I read them. Amy, I'm sure will read them. And if you join her school, I'm sure she'll answer them there as well, or if not, in my group. So thank you, everyone, and I'll talk to you guys soon. And this recording will be up soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.